Hi, folks. You are watching and listening to a very special edition of Open Bar. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. That gentleman out there is.
My name is Ruben Lopez. I'm sitting in my office in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am the founder of Amigo Brands, the owner of Sunora Bacanora.
Sonora Bacanora. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen this issue of Tequila Aficionado magazine, these folks were one of the first ones to actually jump on board and get a cover from Tequila Aficionado magazine. This is the November issue 2020. They are available on our Amazon and our website as well. You can get these directly. If you missed this issue, you might want to pick this up, have it in your hand, read all about the people involved in Sunora. And Ruben, typically when I start these, I always ask the person that I'm talking with, I always say, why did you start with tequila? But in your case, I'm going to ask you, why Bacanora? And if you folks aren't familiar with Bacanora, it is a style of mezcal that has its own denomination of origin, it has its own history. It was illegal during, it had its own version of prohibition.
Right.
Very similar to the mezcal industry where, people took to the hills to make this. Why did you guys go into this? You were one of the first ones to actually, I think this was our first Bacanora that we sampled at Tequila Aficionado, and they've been coming ever since, not as frequently as the other mezcals coming from Oaxaca.
Right.
Why don't you tell folks a little bit about Bacanora and where it comes from, how many states can make it, and it's made with Angustifolia Ha, which is, they also call it Agave Pacifica.
Correct.
Yeah. Why did you go that route? I mean, why not mezcal?
It's actually an interesting story. So I was born in the state of Sonora, and my family moved to the U.S. when I was 4 years old, and they were looking for a better way of life. So if you rewind the tape to June 27th of this year, outside of San Antonio, Texas, there was a tractor trailer containing a bunch of illegal aliens. I don't mean to diminish that, but it was 53 innocent people who lost their lives because they were being smuggled into the U.S. and they were locked out, and it was left in 100+ degree heat, and they perished.
Oh,
And this has happened way too many times, and so it was my opportunity. My motivation was, if I send some money down, I can help somebody for a little while. If I create jobs and job opportunities, maybe if I can save a few people from risking their lives and coming to the U.S. To find a better way of life like my family did, then that'll be my contribution to humanity. So that was part of the motivation for me to get involved in the alcohol business, in the Bacanora business. Prior to that, I was in real estate business. So in July of 2016, my uncle was visiting my mother here in St. Louis, and I hadn't seen him for about 10 years. And I said, "Uncle, what are you doing with yourself now to earn a living?" And he says, "I am the director of the Bacanora Regulatory Council in Sonora."
oh, no kidding.
Yes, that was the genesis of this whole project.
Wow.
And I said, "That sounds like a really cool job. What is Bacanora?" So that was my very first introduction. Lo and behold, I put together a team from acquaintances that had a lot of experience in the alcohol business, including Bob Ryder. So Bob Ryder has hit some home runs. He's familiar with all facets of the alcohol business: wine, liquor, distilled spirits, beer, et cetera, et cetera. So we started doing, meetings and sitting down and discussing what this was, what the potential was in the market. And it hadn't been discovered before, really, in the U.S.
Yeah.
The good thing is that nobody knew what it was. The bad thing is nobody knew what it was. And it takes a lot of time, money, and effort to create and establish a brand in the marketplace. And thanks to you and your team, you've helped us along the way in educating the world that Bacanora exists. What's interesting about Bacanora is it has been produced for over 300 years.
Yes.
In the state of Sonora. Sonora has a common border with Arizona in a very similar arid climate. So Bacanora was produced, and the indigenous folks developed it to the fermentation stage. They used all parts of the plant because we're going back 300 years before there was electricity, running water, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't until the Spanish missionaries showed up that taught the indigenous folks how to distill it and make it potent. So we have articles that we have found. One of our investors is a historian who teaches at New York University.
Oh, cool.
And or Columbia University. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, so he's done some research for us. And in the late 1800s, there was a robust export of Bacanora to Europe.
Really?
Yes, sir. He is also provided.
This is all new to me because it's it's something that hasn't been brought to light, at least not in a wider amount. I mean, I know a little bit about the history. I didn't know anything about this. This is new to me.
Right. So yeah, in the late 1800s, there was a robust Bacanora industry in Sonora with exports to Europe. And we even found an article in, I want to say 1906, where they're advertising, get your dry goods and your best Bacanora at a dry goods place in Arizona, somewhere near the border. So we were exporting, or the industry was exporting to Europe and Arizona, who knows where else, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Well, in 1915, along comes a general who's in charge of the territory, and he decides that it's leading to a moral decay of society. So he sets out to destroy the industry, and he does. He and his merry men set out into the countryside, and they locate the distillers. And if he's having a bad day, legend has it that he will either hang them or death by firing squad. And so one of the taglines that we adopted based upon this history was the original outlaw spirit, because these guys both were involved in making the illegal spirit, and they were the outlaws. Really, they were the outlaws. But despite the fact that it could cost them their lives, they continued doing it clandestine. So Bacanora was illegal until 1992. So it didn't, right?
That I'm familiar with. Yes.
Right. So
surprisingly, it was illegal for that long.
Right. Almost 77 years, or almost 80 years. But nevertheless, it didn't affect the other types of alcohol. I read that lobbyists paid the governor, or the general who became the governor, or his inner circle, and the mysterious alcohol ban on beer disappeared, and then the alcohol ban on wine disappeared. So wine and beer continued to be sold, not Bacanora.
Huh.
So it only affected Bacanora in the state of Sonora. We also found a newspaper article that was published in the national newspaper of Mexico City, and they were critical of the governor of the state of Sonora for being so heavy-handed with his decrees, right?
Right. So
let's fast forward to 1992. There was a gentleman from the region where the Bacanora is made. It's defined by only 35 counties now, and I'll explain that in a minute. But he went to law school, became a politician, and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we got to repeal this law." So this gentleman was instrumental in convincing the legislature of Sonora to repeal this ban. After 1992, it was legal again to produce and manufacture. In 2005, the denomination of origin was created, and it defined exactly what type of product, the Angustifolia haw plant. At one time, it was called Agave Pacifica. We found it easier to pronounce for the American markets. We adopted Agave Pacifica. Right now, Angustifolia haw is popular, and so we disclose it in all of our literature that that's the true name, but Agave Pacifica was used, and we like, so that's what we're using in the U.S. So Bacanora is restricted to a certain part of the state of Sonora, not all of it. Right. I spoke to one of the authors of the document, and I asked him, why was it restricted to just these 35 counties? And he says, we wanted to give an economic advantage to the people from that area. And so that's why it's confined to that part of Sonora, not the entire part of Sonora, just kind of the central eastern mountainous regions of Sonora. And I have maps, and we can get you maps if you're curious, but it's some of that is on our website. So anyway, 1992 was legalized. 2005, the denomination of origin was waived, and so now the industry is really starting to take off. We decided to go down in January of 2017 to see what existed, at what state of evolution the industry was in. It was still very much antiquated, handcrafted, small batch. Problem that we saw was lack of raw material. Because of our visits down there and discussions with the growers, we've talked a lot of people into investing in the future and planting agave, which takes about a 5-year, 6-year cycle before it hits maturity. So in 4 or 5 years from now, I'm told we have we'll have plentiful raw material to make Bacanora. So in 2018, we started selling product in the United States. And because of the equipment licensing partnerships, we started bottling our products in Las Vegas, Nevada. And because of the lack of raw material, we were concerned that Bacanora would take off and we wouldn't have enough supply. So Bob Ryder introduced the Mocha cream liqueur, a fantastic liqueur.
Yes.
15% alcohol. It's a combination of coffee and chocolate. And then in October
fantastic, of 20, by the way.
Thank you.
That one makes you fall in love with the whole line, but that Blanco is also spectacular. That was the root of the line at the time.
Exactly. And let me just backtrack. So the Blanco has been made the same way for 300 years. The root balls are harvested and they're cooked in underground ovens, and it usually takes 48 hours. There's no thermometers or anything used. I've asked some of these distillers, well, how do you know when they're ready? He says, I can tell by the smell. Right?
Wow.
So that's the level of expertise that they have. So once the piñas are cooked, these things range from 10 kilos to 200 kilos, or roughly 15 pounds to 175 plus pounds. Some of them are huge, and so they're very dense, and they would weigh, I would say, twice or 3 times the weight of a regular watermelon.
Wow.
And so the last 6 months before they're harvested, they're deprived of water, so the sugar concentrates in the plant. And so that's the cooking process. Then it goes to the fermentation stage. It ferments. In our case, we use yeast.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with how fast it ferments and how high the alcohol content gets the fermentation process.
Is there a specific yeast that you use, or is it, for instance, proprietary? It's a yeast made from the plant itself. Some of the tequileros will do that.
Right.
Or it's champagne yeast or something.
Yeah, in our case, we do have a yeast that we buy there locally. I'm going to hold off on disclosing what.
You don't have to tell it.
But we do use a yeast that's commercially available. Yes.
Okay.
We've gotten really good results with that, so that's our continuing process. There's some really exciting things happening for Amigo brands, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so once it ferments, a lot of the fermentation has to take place, and it's reliant on the ambient temperature. If it's colder, it takes a longer time for the fermentation to take place. If it's hotter, it moves a little bit faster. The climate is so miserably hot in Sonora that a lot of the distilleries are open air simply to get the ventilation, right? A couple of weeks ago, I was there, and it was a string of days of 116 degrees.
Wow. Yikes.
And up until the rainy season, which started in July, I don't believe they received a drop of rain since January 1. So these plants are a miracle of nature. They really are, that they can survive day after day after day in that intense heat and still thrive. It's just amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I know that in California, there is an initiative, a project going on in Central California about growing, well, primarily blue agave, but it's I know that there a gentleman that I'm familiar with who has actually a line of Mexican agave spirits, technically tequila, but outside of the denomination of origin, and he used to work in politics in California, so I know that he started a kind of a project initiative with some of the smaller distillers in Central California to begin a project similar, because we're in a drought situation here and you know, in this area, and Central California at one point was a big user of water. Yep. Coming from the Colorado River, you know, when they would grow strawberries and things like that, and that all has to change because, you know, the water's drying up, and it's amazing the size of the piñas that they're growing in California.
Right.
You know, that they're, like, as you said, this plant is a miracle. All the different strains and varieties and species of the same plant, they thrive in these lousy conditions, you know.
Exactly. So when they created the denomination of origin, they restricted it to this area that I talked about. But down in the southern part of Mexico and along the coast of Sonora, it rains a lot and it's very fertile, and they have lots of water there, bountiful crops. And they call them the agro titans from that area because they can't miss hardly with the abundant sunshine and plentiful water. Of all the cash crops in Mexico, agave requires the least amount of water.
Right.
That's one of the pluses of the agave business. And we've turned the corner on that in terms of long-term sustainability and supply. So getting back to, once the fermentation stage is done, we run it through our pot stills, and we separate the three parts: the head, the tail, the heart, and the tail. Right. Mm-hmm. We have a master distiller who's he's actually a mechanical engineer. Just got his master's degree in mechanical engineering. He's a professor. He used to work at Pedro de Mec Brandy Distillery there in Hermosillo.
Okay.
So he has a perspective of a more of an industrial view on the production of our Bacanora. He understands the scientific side and he understands the practical side. He's got 20 years experience making Bacanora. So it was his formulation, along with Bob Ryder's ability to come up with these incredible flavors, that earned us the 2019 San Francisco World Spirits Competition double gold for the Blanco. And we won gold for the Mocha and I think bronze for the Pina Colada. The thing is, we talked a little bit about COVID before this conversation, and that is, before COVID, we would sell about 10 bottles of Mocha to about 3 bottles of Pina. After COVID, we now sell about 10 bottles of Pina to about 4 bottles of Mocha. So I think things that flip-flop. I don't know why. I don't have an explanation. The products continue to be exactly the same.
Cocktails. It's cocktails. You know, it's just, I mean, you know, we were all stuck. We were talking off camera about how crazy COVID was for the last couple of years, and you know how things we're so slowly coming out of it now 2 years later, right?
Right.
But yeah, when I see studies of the, you know, when they do the numbers about how the buying habits of the consumer have changed and what was going on during COVID, a lot of them were just, you know, the Pina, it's a great cocktail just on its own. I mean, there's not much you have to do with it. Just pour it and serve, you know, on ice, and you're good.
Right. No,
that has a lot to do with it, you know.
You're absolutely right. As the owner of a small company, I wear many hats, and I've done a lot of demos, and I've personally served probably over 18,000 people. And now what I tell them is, our recipes are that good in the bottle. Sure, you can make a cocktail out of them. My recommendation is, first start the creams in the refrigerator, and then just on the rocks. You don't need to create any more difficulties or complications. It's that good.
The recipes, folks, again, if you have not had any of these, this one here was my favorite. This is the Pina right there. That's the Blanco.
Right.
The Pina really is refreshing. But this one is, I'm a big coffee drinker. I mean, I always tell people the one thing about people who love agave spirits, and one thing that they're just as passionate about is their coffee. So
right.
This is like excellent for, café con piquete or on its own. It's an amazing product, folks. And if you've not had it, you owe it to yourself to go pick some up and try it. Howard, so I heard through the grapevine, I know we've been in contact with maybe yourself and a couple of other officers in the company.
Right.
I had heard that there were some exciting things going on with Sunora. When you went through this your date line, I'm thinking to myself, boy, this has really been it's almost been close to a decade that you guys have been really just ramping everything up and doing the due diligence and then coming to market. And there's been a long process for you guys.
Yes, it's been a long process. We think we are the industry leader. We have distribution currently in the United States in 7 states. We had Patrick Quinn, currently our CEO,
yes,
joined the team about 2 years ago. He comes from 10 years of running the Major Brands distributor here in Missouri. Major Brands was recently bought by Breakthrough, but Patrick ran that. We're very lucky to have him on the team. And so we decided that we need to get our license in Mexico to be able to sell and to develop the Mexican market. So I bought a little farm. It's 10 acres. We have 10 hectares, 25 US acres. We have 21,000 agave plants in the ground. We are about to plant 250,000 seeds in our greenhouse. We built a little house for the farmhand, and we're retrofitting our distillery. We did an expansion for the tourist portion. And so when we reassemble in the next month or so, we're going to have new equipment for bigger volumes of Bacanora at that distillery. Now, in the interim, this is something pretty important, and I think it's going to create greater opportunities and interest for Bacanora as an industry and as Sonora. We're partnering up with a gentleman in Sonora, and they own a hunting ranch, and within that hunting ranch, he's got 2.5 miles of agave plant. Okay, he took a chance. So we have enough capability to produce this year 250,000 liters of Bacanora.
Wow.
Next year, we will have the capacity for 300,000 liters of Bacanora.
That's a lot of juice.
It is a lot.
Wow.
But what's interesting is they're currently building the distillery and putting the finishing touches on it. You won't have transportation costs because the agave is right there.
Right.
And this distillery is right in the middle of these agave fields. We're building a storage room for aging of the Bacanora. We did an experiment a while back with 2 52-gallon barrels. And they started life as American oak, traveled to Spain. They were used for making sherry.
Oh, okay.
We bought those barrels, brought them back as an experiment, and we filled them with Bacanora. They were in those barrels for 14 months. And what was produced was this incredible elixir, a golden brown color, and the taste is fabulous. We chose to play with the recipe a little bit and not have that smoky harshness. And so some of it was removed by the aging barrel, the wood.
Right.
And some of it was because of the process. So it's been an incredible hit. We only got 525 bottles out of that batch. They've all been sold.
You're killing me.
With the
I was
exception,
going to ask you, when do we get to taste this stuff?
I will get you. I will get you a bottle. It's really that good. It's really that good.
Because we always do, our tastings between two tasters, and that's why it's called sipping off the cuff. And
Sure.
but you're doing stuff that hasn't been done yet in the Bacanora industry. In the Bacanora industry, even with the small amount of brands that we had gotten, have
Right.
been, we keep saying it's in its infancy. It's just,
Right.
it's just getting to be known.
Right.
And you guys are really already on that cutting edge, because this year I'm putting together our ballot for the 2022 season of Sipping Off the Cuff, our official Brands of Promise ballot. And I'm looking back at it, and we've had only one Bacanora that was aged. In fact, we've only had one Bacanora all year,
Right.
from any new producer.
Okay.
And
So I will get a bottle to you.
yeah, please.
Get a bottle to you. I'm not going to disclose how we arrived at this flavor and lack of smokes. It's a little different than our regular Bacanora. Like I said, this was an experiment,
Right.
and it turned out much better than what we ever imagined.
Well,
But
you're using sherry barrels, and that's like, oh, that perked my interest, because my experience with anything aged in sherry is usually tequila,
right.
And those are the more the more expensive, and people who know what they're doing with these barrels, because they're, as you said, they're experimental. I mean, if you wait too long, or as they say with tequila, after so many years it starts to taste like something else.
Right.
But you still have the Bacanora, the integrity of the Bacanora, the plant is still there.
Right.
But it's just tweaked a little bit, and I'm in. I want to try it.
It's actually been smoothed out, and it's just incredible. It tastes like something that you just can't describe. That good.
Wow.
So I'll get you a bottle. You're no longer in Texas, right? You're in California.
No, I'm in California now. Yes. Let me back up a little bit. Now, you were discussing your process. How do you shred your agave, your angostifolia? Is that by hand? Are you using a shredder?
We use a custom-made shredder that was designed by our master distiller, who's a mechanical engineer.
Right.
And so he created this unique product with a 5 horsepower motor and the knives that chop that up. In our new facility, we're going to start producing our Bacanora in a new facility. This is the one that's on this hunting ranch. Right?
Okay.
And when there's no lack of space, because the ranch is 54 square miles.
Yikes. Wow.
Yes, it's 9 miles long by 6 miles wide.
Jeez.
And so we have lots of space there. That's where the like 400 acres of agave is planted, and the distillery is currently being put together, finishing touches. We bought 2 copper pot stills that are installed now. We need to run the first batch through, and we're at that stage. Getting back to the aged Bacanora, this was so successful, and we got such a positive reaction from the public that we went ahead and bought 140 barrels. And so we are going to fill
Are they all 140 sherry barrels?
No, these, we're going to try something a little different. These came from California. Okay. And so that's what we're going to use. The new distillery is a kind of a semicircle overlooking the agave fields, and underneath the storage area for the barrels is semicircular, and then above it are going to be offices and conference rooms that overlook the agave fields. So it's going to be a very, very nice place.
Wow.
We'll have lots of the equipment that we need. So we plan on producing an añejo, a reposado, a cristalino, and then of course the regular Bacanora. And so yeah, these are exciting things. We'll have the ability to invite tourists there, and they can even stay overnight. It's going to take a couple of more months to develop that. This is a 5-star hunting ranch. So the hunters who normally go there, it's an open bar with 5-star gourmet cooking, and I don't
Wow.
know. Yes, I don't know how this is going to work out because we're marrying these two things. And so the hunting season, it would be closed to tourists. But once the hunting season is over, it's going to be.
Wow. I did not know the scope of the, of the plans. I had heard that was, I had only heard it was an upcoming distillery, which in that state, in the Bacanora industry is known as a vinata,
Right.
but it's a distillery is what it is.
Exactly. And so we're very excited about that. We're going to ramp up and really enter another level of production and capabilities and tourism. And fortunately, this place is inside one of the counties, and it's very close to the international highway that runs north and south that was created under NAFTA, my understanding. And it's about 2 hours from the U.S. border. It'll be about 2 hours.
Wow, it'll be an easy jaunt,
Yeah,
really.
it'll be an easy day trip, and so yeah, it should be a lot of fun. It's a beautiful place. I was there in the fall, and it's a little chillier than most of the places in Sonora, but for me it was beautiful weather because I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like I said, I had not known the scope of what was going on. You guys have been pretty, been pretty quiet about how things have been, going. I mean, this is honestly, folks, this is the first time I've even heard that Ruben was involved. I mean, but you were there from the beginning, and that's, working on the, I mean, literally doing the footwork and things like that. So it's like, uh,
Well, I'm the founder. It was my crazy idea, and I'm the biggest investor. And the only reason I say that I'm the biggest investor is because I would never solicit funds from somebody if I didn't put my own money in, and I'm willing to take the risk. So
yeah.
I would not ask anybody to take a risk that I haven't already.
And what do you love about Bacanora? I mean, was it something that you um you know was it around the house all the time? Did you grow up with it? I mean, had you heard about it? What did you think when you had your first, you know, I don't I just kind of wonder, because the reason I ask is because there's always a story that somebody says, well, my uncle, my grandparents, came back to this country, and they, but we had an uncle who was making bacanora or mezcal or whatever. Uh, what about you? I mean, what are your personal tastes? Do you gravitate to a blanco? Do you like the cocktail versions of it? I mean, you serve it, so you tell me.
I here's what I've discovered. The folks that buy bottles of Bacanora, they don't really want to be bothered with cocktails. They just like the flavor and they want it like that, straight. Depending on the social setting that I'm in, if I'm around a bunch of people and we're having a good time, I'll drink the Blanco and I like it just straight, right?
Yeah.
We've come out with some wonderful cocktails. We just sponsored the Iron Chef competition in Tucson. They created a cocktail that a bartender in Las Vegas created and won a competition that we had there a few years ago.
Okay.
And it was called Sex in Sonora, and that's what we served at the Iron Chef competition, and it was a total hit, right? Wow. And in the process, we've developed a bunch of cocktails that are really, really good. And so one of them is our version of the Paloma. And so in Sonora, when we've done these demos, beachside, poolside, oceanside, it's really, really hot. So one of the quick cocktails, if you allow me to share with our viewer,
Sure.
is we use tahine. So tahine is a chili lime powder that they use in Mexico for fruit seasoning, right? And then there's another product called chamoy. Chamoy was actually ripped off of the Chinese. You go to a Chinese restaurant, and you have all the different plum sauces. Well, somebody somewhere along the way liked the plum sauces that are Chinese origin, and they twisted them, modified them for the Mexican palate. And so they also use this liquid gooey fruit seasoning, and which is called chamoy. And there's various iterations. Some of them are salty, some of them are sweet, and they always have a little bit of pepper in them, right? So we take the tahine and pour it in the bottom of the glass. We take the chamoy and put it in the bottom of the glass. Of course, the Sonora Bacanora, a little bit of ice, you shake, and then pour into the glass, fill it with ice, and then squirt. And so
Oh my God.
that is a twist. That is a twist on the traditional Paloma. It
Wow.
turns, it turns a little reddish. It's not as sweet because of the tahine and the chamoy. And it's really, really refreshing. And it's only like 4 ingredients. So
Wow.
if you want, I'll send you the recipe, and it's really easy to make. I wouldn't make it with the añejo because that's too good. But
No, well, I think the añejo, when it finally hits the market, it'll probably be just on its own. I'm sure. I mean,
yeah,
that unless it's Las Vegas, there's always a high roller
right,
who's gonna want to
right,
have something with his añejo.
right.
What's your ETA? I know this has been a while, and it didn't help that I heard about this just prior to the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and everybody was just frozen for a while. I mean, I imagine that your plans kind of like 2 years behind
Yes,
what you had planned on scaling.
yes, absolutely. We're still not fully recovered from the pandemic. It really closed a lot of opportunities for a lot of brands. Some of them are no longer standing. The forests were filled with a bunch of little brands like us, and now there's not that many trees standing. We were fortunate enough to have a great team that navigated us through those really tough times. But this year, the sales have really picked up. And we're doing well. We've expanded into Mexico, and things are going well down there in Canada. It looks like we're going to send our first shipment to Central America. So
Wow.
yeah, things are moving along. We work very hard, and thanks to the public support and those that like our products, we want to say thanks, and thanks to people like you who helped us along the way. Products are really, really good. They speak for themselves,
Yes,
and
they're fantastic.
once you taste them, they're winners. They really are. So that's a tribute to Bob Ryder and his ability to come up with these wonderful flavors. I just like to mention that we've been in business. In March, we started our 4th year, and in that time, we've won 21 medals collectively between the product.
Yeah, it's again, I can't stress enough how much it was just an easy, once you get it past, when they say you got to get it past the lips and then it sort of sells itself. This really literally does.
It really does. It
Yeah.
really does.
This is one of those examples, a shining example of you get it past the lips, they're gonna love it. Everybody, you turn them on to it. It's not an off-put. Even the Blanco, and I like that Blanco. It's got a great character, great flavor.
Right.
I was also going to ask you, when you do your fermentation, do you use fibers or not?
Yes, absolutely. We use the whole fiber
Excellent.
of the plant. Yeah, we when the plants are harvested, of course, the leaves are all chopped off, and that's
Right.
left with the root ball, which looks like a pineapple. And
Uh-huh.
in Spanish, pineapple is piña. So
Right.
so the piñas are what's cooked and then ground and then put in fermentation tanks and then put in through the distiller. And we run them through twice the distillation process. All our products are distilled.
Um, Out of curiosity, how many states are you in right now? Obviously, you said Nevada, Missouri, right?
We're in California,
Okay.
Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado, Missouri, and New Hampshire.
Well, New Hampshire.
New
Ah,
Hampshire, New
that's a
Hampshire.
control state, but they're one of the few control states that I understand have their stuff together and do really well with their state-run liquor stores.
Right, exactly. And so they're kind of a bellwether for the other liquor control states. And so if products are moving well, then the other states will adopt a new product like ours. And so that was the strategy behind going into New Hampshire. Results have been a little terrific, have been pretty terrific. We like we talked about here, you gotta try the product, and we intend to go up there and start doing demos here in the fall and introducing that world to to our products. What's interesting is we got into the Las Vegas stores of Costco. We got four,
Oh,
four stores, and Costco's a great partner, but they're very selective in what they allow in their stores.
mhm.
We did the 4 stores, and we pretty much tripled their expectation. It completely surprised us. They just took the pineapple, right? They wanted to start with just pineapple,
Right.
with no advertising, with no promotions, just because of the visual impact of the packaging and the bottle. We sold 3 times what they had expected.
It's
So
everything, every facet of Sonora really impressed us. I know Lisa and I looked at this. It's like, look at that. Look at, the bottle was nice. Even the shape of the bottle, the way the hand feel, it's great to, I'm sure bartenders enjoy it because it's an easy pour bottle.
right.
It's not a tall neck. It's not, cumbersome. I mean, there's everything about it is a winner. So I can only imagine what else you've got in the hopper that you're going to surprise us with. That's why when you said the añejo and the sherry barrel, I went, no, don't do that.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, I have a really good team. We're all passionate. We all like it. And we hear compliments like that, and it motivates us. Motivates us to strive and continuously deliver the best quality product we can. And we have been, and the medals and competitions that we've entered and have borne that out. So yeah, we got some surprises in the pipeline, both in terms of product and in terms of the facility. And once it's done, we'll certainly like to have you down there for.
Yeah.
And you
I got
can
a
come back.
passport. I'm not afraid to use it.
Right. And so they would just have to do it when the weather's nice. You can really enjoy it and sit out there, and it's a beautiful facility. And yeah, we're on the right path. A lot of hard work and some luck, and thanks to people like you who believe in us. We appreciate all that support.
Since the beginning, Tequila Aficionado, this is our 23rd year of literally drinking online. I mean, we invented it. We've been doing it. I tell people we grew up with the internet when there was only audio. Our founder of the website was a big podcaster, so he had all this nice equipment, and I used to do radio
Right.
In Albuquerque. I spent a good 18 years in New Mexico,
Right.
So it's very close to my heart, and I'm very familiar with some of the history of Bacanora in
Right.
the Southwest. As a matter of fact, I know a gentleman who has his own line of tequila. He's actually an indie rock star. I mean, this guy has a following that rivals Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, this guy, but he has his own tequila.
Right.
But he grew up in Arizona, and he's based in Arizona. And he told me the story on his tour bus. He was stopping through Texas that year through New Braunfels, and so we went to go see him, and we sat in his bus, and he told me the story. He says, I grew up on my grandfather's ranch. And it's funny. I said, well, so, because I asked him, why did you go to tequila? I mean, you went into music. I said, why tequila? He said, well, on my grandfather's ranch, he says, we go out there in the summers or whatever to spend time with him. And he actually never drank tequila. He drank Bacanora.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no kidding. So even he has, it's not uncommon that the folks in that area,
Right.
had more of an involvement with Bacanora versus Sotol, which is kind of in that same kind of space. When I grew up, when I was in New Mexico, when I grew up, oh my God, when I got old in New Mexico, that's where I was exposed to Sotol, because it's more generally known in southern New Mexico, in that area and near the Bujio. But in Arizona, it's Bacanora.
Right.
And so I thought it was really interesting. I said, wow, well, why didn't you go with Bacanora? Why didn't you go? Well, you couldn't get it at the time. So he says tequila was more accessible to him. And that's where he's at right now. But I don't know if he's had a chance to actually have any of Sonora, but he might fall in love with that. I'm telling you, because he's got that, he has that that childhood teenage memory of that, and I'm sure his grandfather shared a few of it, with him,
Right.
because it was still illegal probably at that time,
Yeah. And so you'd asked me earlier what motivated me, what got me
Yeah.
in pursuing this. Well, it really was the altruistic side was great job. We've done that. We have attorneys, we have accountants, we have farm hands, we have the social media people. All of that is being done south of the border. All the construction projects, we put people to work. And so we've paid them salaries and we've paid them money. And so that, I've already accomplished what I set out to accomplish. Once we get these distilleries both up and running, these will be steady jobs. The white collar stuff that I mentioned, that's been continuous since the beginning of this project in Mexico, which was about 2018, the beginning of 2018. And so, yeah, we've accomplished our mission. Now it's to introduce the rest of the world to Bacanora, and so we're doing that. I'll give you a quick story. I have a friend of mine who normally drinks vodka tonics. So we were a restaurant here in St. Louis and she ordered her vodka tonic. And the waiter brought it out and said, she says, there's something wrong with this tonic. Try it. I tried it. Said it tastes like a vodka tonic to me. She says, I'm sending it back. I'm getting another one. There's something wrong with this cocktail. Orders a second vodka tonic and he brings it out. And she says, there's something wrong with this one too. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just drink it because there's nothing wrong with it. And you can order something else. She winds up ordering a glass of wine. So as we're sitting there at a table talking, I said, you know what the problem is? It's not the cocktail. The problem is you. You've gotten so used to drinking Bacanora that has so much flavor that this vodka tonic tastes bland.
Yeah.
And so you develop a taste for it. And so now you can appreciate the complexity of what the plant produces.
That's cool. I mean, wow. It really, agave spirits of all types, and we've had so many of them now. We're getting them from New Zealand. I got one that's made in Germany called Selva Negra, because their distillery is near the Black Forest, and there's another one coming. And the beauty of that plant and all of its other species and subspecies, it's amazing what the outcome is if it's done right. And obviously you guys have been really sticklers for that and patient too, because it hasn't been easy. As you said, there's a lot of small brands that are no longer around that just didn't survive the pandemic, and you guys seem like you came out of it pretty well and are thriving. Let me ask you this now. Your background, you said, was in real estate. As an investor, is that?
I have my own little company. I bought and sold houses.
Oh, okay. Really? That's it. And how do you find the public in Missouri? Because that's the Midwest. I mean, how have they taken to Bacanora? How do you see? I mean, I would imagine in the Western states it's much easier, like California, Nevada, New Mexico, obviously.
Right. Well, there's always the trendsetters that want to try something new, and those are the ones we want to connect with. People are excited to try something new. The creams are not a problem. Everybody loves the creams, and they're not mysterious. They're not that expensive, and they're not that strong. They're only 15% alcohol. The Blanco's been a little bit slower to be received. I agree with what you said. Everybody in Arizona seems to know what Bacanora is. So we're going to focus our efforts and make that the epicenter of our publicity program. What's interesting is in Mexico, they still believe that they have this kind of negative attitude towards Bacanora. And that was because I think of the lack of professionalism. That's all changing. And with our master distiller, we have chemical analysis done on everything that we ship. And so the standards are rising across the board very quickly. And tequila has led the way. We still are going to do it the traditional way. We're not going to be all industrialized like tequila because we can get away with it in the short run. I mean, if at some point our production levels require us to go industrial, then we'll have no choice to fulfill our contracts. But right now, we're still going to be roasted in underground ovens. We have big underground ovens. So the process will be essentially the same, more modern and more efficient equipment so that we won't have as much waste.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too. I mean, I know that I know the tequila industry has a lot of problems with its wastewater, its vinazas, bagazo, and stuff like that. How are you going to approach that? You're probably not producing as much right now, where it's becoming a problem.
Right.
But it's something if you're going to ramp up, you obviously have to look at the waste product that's coming out as well, because that's also going to ramp up. So how are you going to approach that?
Well, like I said, we have plenty of space, 54 square miles. Some of it we can use as fertilizer, but this has all been thought out. Some of the water we can purify and use to the point where we can use it in our irrigation system.
Okay.
On this farm is a huge pecan plantation, and so we're going to use some of those pecan trimmings. The trees have to be trimmed on an annual basis, and they literally have piles and piles of these pecans. We're going to experiment with the flavoring using pecan trimmings on our buck.
Oh my.
So these folks that we're partnering up with, they're very conscientious about the environment. And so we want to recycle and remain green with zero carbon footprint. And that's all part of our mission statement. And so we planned all these things out. And as they're building the distillery, we have that capability and those plans in place.
So solar will be a big deal for you folks as well, correct?
Yeah, solar will come into play at some point. We would like that. The actual farm is located about 18 miles off of the international highway down this dirt road, and so it's a long way. They spent almost $2 million just running the electric to this facility.
Wow.
And it's been in the family for many generations. Solar is a way to go. They are looking at that. The other thing is cellular communication. They're going to look into additional, maybe use Elon Musk's Skylink system for internet connection, because we all live with our internet connections and cell phones.
Yeah,
it's a little limited there. So this is another upgrade for that facility as well, and all these things are taken into consideration. But our goal is to have a zero carbon footprint at the end of it.
That's wow. That's even. I know that you said that the tequila industry has kind of led the way for upscaling the way business is done and processing is done. Do you see yourself borrowing benefits from the other denominations of origin, or the other industries, like the mezcal industry or the tequila industry, or do you primarily just look at the tequila industry and say, okay, we've seen how they do things, you've seen where they made the mistakes that the pitfalls that you don't want to have the challenge with,
right?
And
no, absolutely.
The challenge with industrializing, you know what I mean? That's walking that thin line.
Well, just to give you an idea, like all this new equipment for this new distillery is all purchased in Guadalajara in the Tequila region, because that is the epicenter for the industry.
Right.
And so the latest and greatest and most efficient equipment is manufactured there. So that's where we bought everything.
Okay.
And we've learned those lessons, because this equipment is produced for the smaller tequila producers. And so it's available to us. And since we're not huge yet, we can use that smaller equipment. And the smaller it is, the more it aims the traditional methods, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a combination of modern technology with efficient equipment that we can still use in our applications. Real quick, the tequila guys, to maintain the volume that they do, they have these things called diffusers, okay? And so the diffusers are like this big tanker, like a gasoline truck.
Yeah, it's as big as a train. It's huge.
Yes, right. And so they have a series of injection positions where they inject steam into the piñas, and they pretty much shred them with these jets so that they're left with liquid, with sugar in this liquid, right? And so when the fibers come out the other end, they virtually have no sugar. So what the tequila guys do is they then cook this soup, this concoction of the sugars drawn from the pinas, and once they cook it, then they start with the fermentation process. Conversely, in Sonora, the pineapples are cooked first,
Yep.
right? Not the broth. So the pineapples are cooked first, and then the whole fibrous plant, after it's been shredded, is what's fermented. And so once it's fermented, then it goes to the pot still and it gets cooked. The tequila guys do things a little different.
Yeah, they take there's a lot of them now that are, you know, going that route, and I can tell you, if you've had enough of them, you can taste the difference. It's just not, you know, that's when it comes out the other end. That's why they're starting to, you know, there's a big initiative now against using additives, which is allowed by the normas of tequila.
It is allowed by the tequila NAM.
Yeah.
There's you know, they're kind of victims of their own success. They have to meet these contracts and meet the supply and meet the orders, so they have to go industrial. You know, that's fine. That's their prerogative. We're not at that stage in the Bacanora industry yet, but we will have one of the leading distilleries in terms of modern volume.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, I think again, I have my own views about where the tequila industry is going, and it scares me. So you know, obviously that's the other thing that I'm sure you and your teams have looked at is, you know, the scary headlines about, you know, tequila and mezcal overtaking whiskey and then vodka. You don't want that to happen, because that's not sustainable. And I love where you guys have looked at everything. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything's escaped you. Everything is the sustainability, the efficiency, the environment, you know, taking all that into consideration, so that when your distillery is finally open, I mean, you're gonna be looking at a crown jewel, not just for the Bacanora industry itself as the gold standard, but I mean, maybe other industries will be looking at that going, these guys did it right. Maybe we should, you know, follow them, you know.
And you know, we're willing to teach and share our knowledge with anybody who's willing. I mean, we're not one brand doesn't make an industry. We want the whole industry to prosper, and we want good products. We want everybody to sell good products and carry some of the burden of educating the world that we exist and spending promotional dollars on getting the word out there, right?
Yeah.
I will say this: our distillery is going to be the closest one to the U.S. border. And
well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like you said, you even took like tourism into consideration, because 2 hours from the border, that's not that far, you know. I mean, yeah,
it's a day trip.
Yeah, it's a day trip, you know, or an overnight, if you know,
right.
If that's a, yeah. I was going to ask you any. I know you've got the hunting ranch there. Obviously, it's got sleeping quarters or something close to a boutique hotel. Is that something in the plans for you folks, or just
they're there? I don't know how many rooms are available, but they're kind of semicircular shape. In the middle of this facility is a building with a kitchen. It's like the dining room with a beautiful fireplace. It's all glass on all sides, and so it's got a table that'll seat about 18 people. And so the chef is there, and you can just enjoy the view. Or when I was there, it was cold, so they had a fire going, and the rooms are kind of embracing that main room in the middle on either side. So it's a nice place. So there's no additional construction required. I would say it would house 20, 30 people.
That's not bad. That's about, you know, that's a good sized, you know, it's enough for privacy and intimacy.
Right.
That really it sounds enchanting. It sounds, you know, does the ranch have a name? I mean, does it?
Well, the family's name is Chamoy, so it's Chamoy Farms, CAMOU. They're actually of French descent, but they've lived in Sonora for 5-6 generations.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, they've owned the ranch. They've owned the ranch for 5 or 6.
and wow. Okay, so now that we've kind of delved into the history of Bacanora and the history of Sunora, what do you want people to know about it? I mean, when you like you said, you do a lot of serving yourself. I mean, I'd imagine everybody on the team has had a chance to do a demo. You know, what is it? What's the most common question you get, and what's the most challenging thing that you've come up with that you've been able to attack?
The most difficult thing is getting people to understand that something besides tequila exists. So many times I will tell them it's Bacanora. The juice is called Nora. It's made from a different plant. Yeah, that tequila is really good, right? What's happened is tequila is now part of the American culture. There are
Yes.
country songs written about it. It's almost American, right?
Almost.
And so folks can relate to that because it's all around them at restaurants, in the music, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's very difficult to educate the public and let them know, hey, there's something else besides it. The story that I use is when photocopiers first made it on the scene in the 60s, I believe. Xerox was the company that came out with that copier.
Right.
And so I remember when I was a kid, people say, well, make me a Xerox, make me a Xerox. And later on with the other brands that entered the market, it was like, no, it's a copy, right? It's not a Xerox. But we use that term, or Kleenex. Let me have a Kleenex.
Yeah, Kleenex, right? Or Coke, you know.
Right. And so that's what's happened with tequila. So it's the 800-pound gorilla. And one of the things we're trying to break through and say, hey, look, there's other distilled products made from an agave. So the more sophisticated buyer and consumer understands that. And one of the examples I give them is, look, if we were talking about a red wine category, it would be red wine would be the heading, but you have the different red grapes that produce a different type of wine.
Right.
It's the same thing really with agave. There's about 250 different agave plants that are related. Not all of them are well suited for making a distilled spirit, but these are the most popular. Everybody knows Blue Weber is tequila, and everybody knows that there's 5 or 6 different ones that can be used for mezcal. And with Bacanora, we can only use this one single plant. And what gives it the unique flavor is the state of Sonora happens to be very rich in minerals. They've discovered just about every precious metal there. And so the soil has got these minerals where I think if you planted a Blue Weber agave next to an angustifolia plant and took that Blue agave back to Jalisco, it would produce a different flavored juice.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the minerals in the soil that it grew in. So that's what makes another thing that makes Bacanora different. My consultant, the agave consultant, goes out and monitors the growth of the plants. He's told me that Angustifolia Hall or Agave Pacifica is the grandfather of all the agave. So
I've heard that said before, actually.
So I've asked him for that document. He hasn't produced that document, so we haven't published that. And so right now it's hearsay, but I'm waiting for the scientific document so that I can back it up, right?
There's one other oh gosh, we've already gone over an hour. There's one other grower, I believe, in Sonora, I think, that has recently been accepted into the mezcal denomination of origin. And I know that they've been trying either to get to be adopted into one or the tequila DO, and the tequila never gonna, they're never gonna, it was an uphill battle for them, but they were accepted into the mezcal denomination of origin, and they are blue agave growers, and they had a history from the 19th century,
right,
of growing blue agave there. But I had not heard that about the soil and the terrain. That's interesting to me, because that explains a lot about the final product, about Sunora, because that Blanco is very distinctive,
right,
and it's really different from mezcals too. It's not the hand of the maker has a lot to do with it as well. But again, this plant probably, I'm willing to believe that. I've heard that said before, that the Angustifolia Ha is the supposed grandfather, or the most closely related, I guess, to what all the other agaves, or at least the blue agave, and Criollo, I think it's a kind of a strain of blue agave that they're allowed to make tequila from. So
Exactly.
well, you know what, Ruben, this has been great. I had no, I knew very little. I mean, it was kind of secretive, and of course, obviously, you had to keep things under wraps anyway. And then the pandemic hit, and it kind of pushed things back a little bit. But folks, if you have not had Sunora, you need to look for it. Okay, if you're watching us in any of the Western U.S. states or Arizona, you folks are next. You're on that target. There's a beautiful. Again, this cover is from November, so if you want to learn more about this brand, there's a lot of information from the founders in here, and it was a beautiful issue. These are perennial issues, so they're available on Amazon. Go on our website, tequilaaficionado.com. Ruben, thank you for your support as well. You and the team have been on the cutting edge, and you guys are probably the most patient dudes ever, because I don't see how you guys are still, but it's really a testament to how much you are sticklers for detail, and just to have you describing what the distillery will look like is even more inspiring to me, because I was just happy to hear that you were going to build your own vinata.
Right.
I had no clue that it was going to be this project, and congratulations to you and Bob and Patrick and everybody else on the team. I mean, I don't know who else is on there, but your master distiller and all that, because I really can't wait for. Do you have any idea when you'll be ready to finally, open your doors and go, hey, we're open for business?
Well, the distillery should be functioning maybe by the end of this month. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And it would be a matter of convincing our partner that we could have some VIPs down there. I would recommend maybe late October, before the hunting season starts. So we're going to talk next week, and I asked him a couple of questions because I knew this topic was going to come up. And so, we certainly want to entertain folks down there and show them what we have to offer. It's going to be the biggest and probably state-of-the-art distillery in Sonora. Nothing like the tequila business is, but we're not at that volume yet. So, and
you don't need to be.
We don't need to be. This is an intermediate step. This is not going to be the final project, but we're excited. It's in a beautiful facility, very close to the U.S. border, and this project has all been well thought out. Like I said, I have a great team, and they're all dedicated and passionate to this project. And so far, we're chugging along. We're the little engine that could.
My gosh, congratulations to you guys. I'm kind of proud about that, because we had you guys on our cover. We can say, we were there first.
Right.
And the funny thing is, with Tequila Aficionado, we tend to be that. We always look for that craft brand, the startup,
right.
Because there's so many of them now that are coming online, and not just tequila, but now mezcal.
Right.
Sotol is ramping up somewhere,
right.
But their industry is in its infancy. There's a lot of infighting going on.
Right.
But I love what you guys are headed. I love the planning ahead, and congratulations. I know the last couple of years have not been easy, but it's a testament to you guys. Just putting your head down and keep going, and that's just going to make you even more successful. I mean, I can already sense it, and I don't know half of what you guys know in your business, but congratulations. I'm so happy for you and Bob and the whole team, and for Sonora folks. Again, if you've not had this stuff, go get yourself. start off with this. That's my favorite right here. But this is the one that's leading the way right now. And if you're a reformed vodka drinker, this is your jam right here.
Well, Mike, let me just say one thing.
Sure.
I will get you one of the rare bottles of Añejo, which was not sold in the United States. So the only people that got it was a few distributors and a few of the investors. Right?
Oh my God! I can't wait. I can't wait. I don't even know if I want to open it, but I'm going to have to.
Open it. And so again, it was so successful. We're going to try to replicate it. The other thing is, once this distillery is open for tourism, you'll be in the first group of that.
Like I say, I got a passport. I ain't afraid to use it.
All right.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting you, everybody, in person. I mean, we kind of communicated on the phone or by email. Right. And really, this is the first time that Ruben and I met virtually. So,
right.
But thank you again for taking the time for, to speak with us at Open Bar. Folks, you have been watching and listening to a very special edition of Open Bar. This is Ruben Lopez of Sunora, Bacanora. Okay, if you folks are listening to us on the podcast and you haven't heard that review, go back and look for it. It's playing perennially wherever you download your podcast, on iTunes and Amazon Music, and it's everywhere now. So we're like on 10 different platforms. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, hit the notification bell. That way, you get notified every time we have an interview that comes up. Subscribe if you're not afraid of commitment. And again, Ruben, thank you so much for taking the time. I am so happy for you guys, and I can't wait to see what the future has for you and Sonora. So, anything else you want to add to the viewers and let them know?
No, other than send me your email, or excuse me, your physical address. I can send you a bottle.
I will do that. Thank you very much, Ruben. Thank you for being with us on Open Bar, folks. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a like, share it, and whatever you do, hey, tomar sabiamente. Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.